what's next. Life's a journey, never complex. A lifelong student, educators call. Guiding future, standing tall. Conscious parents, info hat on tight. Drove through decades, walked away for rights. From the motion pictures to the cosmic light. Contactees, journey, universal sight. Attention to put the human back to humanity. Mic check, 1, 2, hear the clarity. Fascinated by the human experience. Sharing stories, breaking the silence. Human experience, hang up, come along. Kids, health, synaptic circle, singing our song. Random vlogs, life stories to tell. Each journey a beacon, wishing well. We all have incredible tales to share. Healing, activation, spreading care. Light the way, find the others. What's your mission, sisters and brothers? Attention to put the human back to humanity. Mic check, 1, 2, hear the clarity. Fascinated by the human experience. Sharing stories, breaking the silence. Human experience, hang out, come along. Kids, house, synaptic circle, singing our song. Random vlogs, life stories to tell. Each journey a beacon, wishing well. We all have incredible tales to share. Healing, activation, spreading care. Light the way, find the others. What's your mission, sisters and brothers? Attention to put the human back to humanity. Mic check, 1, 2, hear the clarity. Fascinated by the human experience. Sharing stories, breaking the silence. Rise, humanity, unity we seek. Community sharing, synaptic circle unique. Be the solution, lift someone today. Assist in the rise, light the way. May this song lift whoever comes across, and may you do the same, no matter the cost. Spread the light, ignite the flame. In unity we rise, forever reclaim. Attention to put the human back to humanity. Mic check, 1, 2, hear the clarity. Fascinated by the human experience. Sharing stories, breaking the silence.
Hello, greetings and salutations. Good afternoon. This is episode 16 of the Synaptic Circle, and I'm your host, Heidi Pop, and I love to synchronize synapses with fellow like minds and build community. Hello, community chat. Very good to see you. Welcome, Joe. Hi to Mothman, Garrel, and Jane in the house. Moderators for the riffraff, if we get any. Thank you all so much for being here. Happy to see you. Please throw in questions at any time. I am really grateful and honored to have this conversation. And the theme is Dogman, Bigfoot, and those communities. And the reason I'm doing this is because I was a guest on both of my guest shows. And so I have small tales to tell, but I really want to dig deep in their knowledge and their research and this passion of theirs. And so welcome, Vic and Mike. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Woohoo! Mr. Vic Cundiff, host of several shows. My Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio, Dogman Encounters. I mean, you Paranormal Experience. You have a few shows out there, and I think Dogman's kind of like your specialty in a way. Isn't that is that your favorite, and why?
You're right. Yeah, Dogman is what brought me to the dance. I've been doing this whole Dogman thing since I spoke with my first eyewitness back in 2007. And since then, you would think doing it for so long, it would kind of stagnate, but seems like it's always something new. It's always something new, and you really never know what to expect next. I just got a report that came in just minutes ago. And I mean, it's not a tired thing when it comes in. Oh, there's another report. It's as fresh now as it has ever been. So wow. As long as I can say that, it's a good thing.
That is a good thing. That's an absolute good thing. And Mr. Mike Colontonio, Mr. Long Island Bigfoot himself. You're a combat vet, but how'd you get into this stuff? And why?
Well, actually, that's exactly how it ties in. when I got back from Afghanistan, I extended my contract to go over to Afghanistan. So when I got back, it was it. Like I was done, my army term was done. So I was kind of just released back into the, regular society. And there was like no transition, and I was a mess. And, I turned back to like the street life that I knew for a short period of time. And that wasn't working out. So I ended up at the VA hospital and started getting treatment for like substance abuse and PTSD and all sorts of things. And while I was doing that, I was immersed in it. I mean, I put myself like in full inpatient type of things, and there were like these classes, kind of, if you will, and like one of them was like meditation, and like the guy would be like, "Oh, just sit still, and like if your mind wanders, like just bring it back to nothing." And I'm like, "You have no idea what's going on in my head right now. Like every time I shut my eyes, I see horrible things like this and that." And like it was, I'm telling you, it was like a lot of work is an understatement. And but I started to find there was this yoga class that I would go to as well. It was first thing in the morning, and I really didn't care for it. It was at like 7 o'clock, and like I would just kind of sit in a chair sometimes, or like lay on my back and just fall asleep. The instructor, she was really cool though. This little tiny old thing, and like she was just like this like. She would come in like cursing about traffic and this and that, and like flipping out, and then all of a sudden just like shoot, like just go into this, like sit down and go into this mode of chill. And I'm like, how would you do that? I'm like, how'd you just do that? How did you just go from 100 to 0 without any effort? And I'm like, I need that. I need that. And then one day she came over to me and she did Reiki on me. And this is when I said, okay, I got to learn what this is, because it was the only thing that ever made me like calm and relaxed and like put me in a state where I could just kind of be. And that's when I started tying like all the things together, But Reiki was the most, which basically means life energy, right? Rei and Ki is life energy. And that's when I started to really immerse myself in that and get certified and learn about it, and certain other things too. And while I was doing all this, it was like a 5-year process, give or take, 5 or 6 years. I was hiking like every day because I did not want to be in public. I didn't want to be anywhere near people, but I couldn't just sit in the hospital all day. So I would go on these hikes. And I was like being a creature of habit at the time because I was just kind of paranoid. So I was taking the same trails, the ones that I knew, the ones I knew nobody was on, you know. So anyway, long story short, that all was fine and dandy. And one day I bumped into something that wasn't supposed to be there. Mind you, I had hiked these trails 2 to 3 hours every single day for 5 or 6 years. I did not have an inkling of anything. And, I know I'm kind of summing it up briefly, but that changed my whole life. Bumping into that giant, thing that is not supposed to be there changed my entire life. And I had some interest in it. And I had wanted to go to the Pac West. I was planning on it, but I was very nervous to get on a plane. But I thought that's what you had to do. I thought you had to go over there. So I was looking for different areas to go where I could just kind of fly in and drop in the middle of nowhere and do my thing, And that's kind of in the same time period when this happened. And I know people have probably heard me say it's a lot, but I guess that's the point where it scared the hell out of me, and there was no reason why it should have scared me. It didn't do anything threatening. It didn't show its teeth. It didn't growl. Didn't bluff charge me. It was just standing there, and it was beautiful. When I look back at it, he was beautiful. Like, he was clean. He was like had the sun shining off them. Like it was actually a beautiful moment. But just I had no fight or flight. Took me, I did flight, but I went down to the ground and I curled in a ball. I'm pretty sure I started crying. I know I was screaming like no, 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 almost like it was a nightmare that I wanted to turn off. Like wake me up, wake me up, wake me up. Or like the scary part of the movie, like like you could turn it off. Like that's what I wanted to happen. And you know, uh, I was just I was just a soldier in war recently, and like there's nothing. Like when I tell people there's nothing that could prepare you for that moment, nothing. Like there's nothing. So
Okay. So did something enough to you to make you go want to really get into it? I got to figure this out. And so you
right.
just kept, okay.
Well, I think that's what happens is like after that, people decide to never go back in the woods ever again. I like some people will move to the city or whatever, or some people need more answers. And for me, like I was a vegetable for a couple of days, but I decided, I said, I gotta, I was one of those people that said, I need to know more. And I don't need the big picture questions answered. Like to me, I'm just happy. Like I'm happy that there's more to life than what we've been told and sold. Like the 9 to 5, the politics, the traffic, and all that stuff. I'm happy that these, mythical creatures are out there. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
cool to me.
Yeah. Well, you brought up something important, and that's, the trauma response. And Vic, I know thousands of encounters that you've been taking in. I mean, people can write you and just share their experience with you, whether it's Dogman or Bigfoot, but you've had a lot of experience with people having a very traumatic effect with that. How do you handle that? Are they seeking guidance, or how do you help them really?
Well, in a lot of cases, they've pretty much given up hope of ever coming to terms with their experiences. But I get excited when I hear that. I hate the idea that they've been traumatized to the point where they've given up hope of ever having a life with any sort of form of normalcy. But that's where I specialize. That's my kind of party right there. Yeah. Recently, there was an eyewitness who contacted me, and she had her encounter years ago when she was in her late teens. And I mean, it was just a horrific encounter. And when I was texting back and forth trying to schedule the conversation, the phone conversation with her, it was clear that she had already given up. She just had resigned to the fact that, okay, this is how my life is going to be, and that's all there is to that. I've heard that you help people with their encounters. We're going to give this a try, but I could tell that her hopes were she had high hopes, but her expectations, unfortunately, I don't think she thought there was any way that what she's been through could be turned around. But after having a conversation with her, a nice long conversation, I mean, she was happy and laughing and everything, and realized that life goes on and everything's going to be just fine. And I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. That right there is a textbook example why I do what I do. I just love that. I feel so blessed to be in a position to be able to help these eyewitnesses turn their lives around and be able to head back into the woods and enjoy. A lot of them, even without going into the woods, I mean, they're just miserable sitting in their homes because they're so limited. They're so compromised on what they can do or what they feel they can do. But to be able to turn that around and have these eyewitnesses be able to take their lives back and everything is just priceless to me. So I really do feel like I hit the lottery.
Oh, I love that, because you're creating a space for them to share, right? You see them, you hear them, and they feel like they're getting to be part of a community. They don't feel so alone. I love that. That's really sweet. I have a question. Because of all of these encounters that you come across, do you have a way to discern who's telling the truth and who's, just making up a story or something? Have you come across some fakes, I should say?
Oh, all the time.
Hi, Moms.
Yeah, there are a lot of charlatans out there that they're just out to lie the way onto the show. Now, when I started doing this, I made myself a promise that unless I actually caught an eyewitness in a definite lie that was irrefutable, then I would much rather allow a person like that to come onto the show who I think might be lying or who I think is lying than to stonewall someone, an eyewitness, a bona fide eyewitness who actually did have their encounter, but due to how they delivered it to me, or for whatever other reason, I mistakenly thought that they were lying. I mean, we've all spoken with people who have told us certain things in a certain way, and their inflections weren't quite right and all that. And because of that, okay, yeah, they're full of it. They're lying. But in fact, they're telling the truth. Well, I just hate the idea of having an eyewitness like that who actually did have an encounter with the Dogman, but because of that, strange inflection or whatever, that I take them to be a liar when in fact, yeah, they actually are a bona fide eyewitness. So that's why, yeah, there have been people. I know there have been people, plenty of people who've come on Dogman encounters who were full of it and were lying about the encounters they claimed to have had. But that's why I have that policy. Now, if I catch that person, I have caught quite a few people in lies. And if that's the case, if I caught them, then that's it. Lie to me once, and how can I trust you again? So yeah, if they lied to me once and I catch them in that lie, then I block them and there's no way they're coming on the show. But yeah, that's why when you listen to the show, you'll hear this episode or that episode, and you might think, okay, I don't know about this eyewitness or that eyewitness. Well, maybe we're both wrong. Maybe they are still telling the truth, but I mean, there are people who have definitely come on and lied. I know the math tells you that's got to be the case, but that's why I've got that policy, like I said, that I've got on that.
Okay. Well, you have someone here. Joyce. Hello, Joyce. Joe, how are you? She said, I hit the lottery that day, Vic, when you helped me turn my life around. So you have someone here contesting. What a wonderful job you've done for that. That's beautiful. And well, I have a couple ways I can go with that, but this really is talking about the community build now. We're building a community of experiencers who are feeling seen and feeling heard. And you both have channels that do that. But there's also been some, I don't know if it's infighting or just, fighting amongst the experiencers. And it really confuses me because I feel like the common ground is we all can attest to that these beasts, these cryptids exist because there's so many people that have had these encounters. Do you think there's what's the method to the madness behind all of these people that are dividing this community that could in fact really be really large? But there's like these little groups, it seems. Do you see that, or is that just my observation?
Yeah. No, of course. Yeah. I mean, you have narratives. I mean, you have some people who have their own narrative, and that's more important than anything. You have people who are just, they like, let's say I didn't go back in the woods, right? And that first experience I had, I'll talk for me. That first experience I had was a flesh and blood Sasquatch. I was looking at 10 feet of, shit brick house. Sorry, there's no other way to put it, but like, a hairy, jacked giant. And if I'm in the woods,
Oops.
but if I stopped there and never went back in the woods, maybe I would just say it was flesh and blood and that's it, right? I've seen one, I know everything. I've seen one, you can't convince me any other way. But as time has progressed and I've continued to go out there, things have gotten weirder and weirder and weirder and weirder, right? And I just, for me personally, I just follow wherever things take me. Now, I don't necessarily put things in a box, but some people do. Some people need closure right away. Some people need answers right away. Some people need to fill gaps with fluff, right? Like, and there's really this piece is missing of the puzzle, but I'm just gonna, throw it in there. And then, psychology comes into play. There's a lot of things involved where, ego is a big thing, right? Like, you can't be right because I'm right, and I don't know. I could probably go on and on, but it's an unfortunate thing, and I don't know why anybody needs to. I don't know. I've seen too much weird to write anybody off.
Right.
Yeah.
I hear you. Yeah, and Professor, I see that like the ufology community too. There's the same kind of issues within. It probably is a lot of ego based. Vic, do you have thoughts on that? Because with all your multiple channels, do you see a pattern?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the idea that you've got such a binary group of people in the cryptid community. I can't like this show if I like that show. And that's why there's so much tribalism to this community. There really is. I don't understand why there's so many people who can't get it through their heads that you can like two shows quite a bit at the same time. There's
I
not
know,
an
right? Yeah.
either or nature to it. That's right. I think that's really the biggest reason why there's so much infighting. But yeah, also too, of course, for the reasons that Mike highlighted as well. But yeah, it's just one of those unfortunate things. It's never changed. Ever since I got into this community, it's been that way. And I guess it's probably going to be that way for the duration.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess it's universal. It can be in all communities. Heck, I'm a teacher. It's in the education community. There's cliques everywhere. Well,
Sure.
getting back to all these encounters, do either of you see a pattern of hotspots? Like, is there a concentrated area on the planet or in the states that you have heard the most experience happen? Like the most legit contact happening? Or is it really everywhere?
Well, I mean, in water, I guess, right? If you stay near water long enough, you have a good chance. But then again, you have to look at where people congregate more. There's going to be more, there's going to be more reports from those areas, like campsites, right? You'll have a lot of campsite stories because more people camp than trudge off trail, through the woods, like, So, I mean, there's that too. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I would say water. That would be my answer.
By water. Vic, have you heard from all these people calling in? Is there like a general population that makes the most calls, like the South or the North or the coasts?
Well, seems like right in the area around Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, that right now, at least, I should say, that seems like the hottest area. But you do get quite a few reports coming in from other areas, like where Mike is, New York State, and you've got quite a few calls coming in from areas like Mississippi, like Alabama, and Georgia, areas like that. But it kind of varies. Michigan, a lot of people think that most of the reports almost always come in from Michigan, but yeah, that's not the case. There are a lot of other areas where most of the reports come in, where a lot of reports come in that put Michigan to shame. So,
Yeah, Kentucky. I think those mammoth caves have a lot to do with the Dogman too, Vic. But I mean, it's just speculation, obviously. But
yeah, I bet you're right.
Well, when you brought up the military, I know Montauk comes into play for you, Mike. Do you see, I know, and in the beginning, introducing yourself, what are both of your thoughts of that, of their involvement in these kind of, because I became swayed a little bit in my own theories, and I'm just curious how you thought. Are these truly like multidimensional beings, or is this like a science experiment gone bad?
well,
I know that's
Montauk is there's like a triangle effect. I call it the Long Island Triangle, but it's not it's not a definite, it's not like a known term. But you have Brookhaven Labs, then you have Montauk and the Montauk Project and Camp Hero, and then you have Plum Island on the north, the north tip, which they operate on animals and different things, and there's a lot going on out here that I think people will be surprised at, but it's like right in your face, right under your nose, but like nobody questions it, So,
gotcha.
Yeah, there's a lot I'd like to say, but I just don't.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, I bring this up too because Vic, I remember hearing you talking with Jessica, and you made me open my eyes a little bit about that. Because if let's say, the government was involved, they're going to control their product. I don't think they're going to just let it, run amok and have the risk of being filmed. That's what really stood out to me when you said that, Vic. And it really made me process things in a different way. So does that still stand true for you, Vic, or do you have other thoughts on government involvement? Or is that just too sketchy?
Oh, no, I definitely still feel that way. Yeah, it's just one of those things. I mean, the government, they have their hands in all sorts of things that they don't want us to know about. And my point on Jessica's show is there's another show where they have this guy who is, I guess, a fairly regular guest. He is supposed to be a government operative who has all the information about dogmen and supposedly can tell you everything you need to know about werewolves, even though we don't know that they actually exist either. But yeah, I mean, my whole thing my point on her show that I was trying to make was, if you have a government operative who is privy to all the info about those secretive programs like that, if there is a Dogman program that the government has, that is, well, the last thing in the world the government is going to allow is going to be an operative like that to come on a podcast and spill the beans on everything. I mean, that's not going to happen. What would you do, Heidi, if your husband, if he had his own podcast and you listened to it once in a while, but not very often, and he knew that, but one night you happened to just tune in. You were away, you were still at work, and he was airing an episode while you're at work, and he thought that you were tied up and busy. Well, you're listening to his podcast, and all of a sudden you can hear that he's spilling the beans on what your social security number is. He is giving out information, telling other sensitive information that you would never want to be released. You know who he is, you know where to find him. I mean, you would squash that right away, and it would be so easy for you to do that. Now, if you talk about the government with all the resources it has, this guy is supposedly putting his face right out there for you to see. Now, you tell me, how hard would it be for the government to squash that right away? That right there tells you that is complete nonsense. What gets me, though, the reason behind that, my strong feelings on this is, I mean, I get tired of talking with an eyewitness who's barely hanging on. They've had a traumatic experience, and they listen to a show like that that's spreading nonsense, absolute nonsensical information about dogmen. And it's one of those shows that, yeah, fear sells. The more frightening a story is, the more people are going to listen to it and view it. And money is more important to them than honesty. So with that in mind, since they don't air stories that are put out there by bona fide eyewitnesses, they pay people to write stories for them, or however they get their stories. Well, they want them to be as frightening as possible. So all of a sudden now you've got a trend towards the mind-eating dogman that's going to rip your face off and split your skull as soon as look at you. Well, I talk with eyewitnesses, like I said, who are barely hanging on. They listen to that crap. They take that as being genuine information about how these guys operate. And then that makes it even harder for these eyewitnesses to deal and cope with their experiences. So that's why I come down so hard on shows like that. If you're going to put out creepypasta, then identify the fact that, okay, this is creepypasta. These aren't genuine encounters. Because if you don't identify it as being creepypasta, then you've got the problem that I just highlighted. People listening to it who have been traumatized, I mean, to the edge by their dogman encounters. They listen to that encounter, they think it's real, and then now they have even more trouble dealing with it. So that's why I feel so strongly about that.
Agreed. That makes tons of sense.
You know, Vic has actually helped me with my dogman situation, because I had been through, I mean, multiple sit downs with people and different things, and I was taking down all these roads that really led me to nowhere, but still having fear. And I had these ideas that, like, well, if they wanted to rip my head off, they would have, you know what I mean? Like, if they, like, they can't just be these flesh eating monsters that just kill everything that moves. They can't be, or I wouldn't be sitting here. And like, and just sitting down with Vic for however long it took, I don't know, our conversation, just an hour, 2, 3, who cares, whatever it was, he sat down with me and we would talk through it. And by the end of it, I was like relieved, you know. I was like, oh, like, and then we ended up doing a show later on, but you know, before that, we just sat down and had a conversation, and it helped me like get through everything, you know, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like he was saying, the monster sells. So, like, you know, fear sells, and that's what people will push because it brings in the clicks and views, and you know, by way
Yeah.
of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess that could lead me into a lighter bit because on both of your channels, I shared my experience as a child, which was very high vibe. It was a interesting, happy, magical experience. And I'm starting to now understand maybe that's because I had the child perspective. It was an innocent perspective. I didn't have this negative fear imagery, so I didn't have anything to go off of. Have
Mhm.
you either of you heard other children's stories before? You know, either currently or in the past. Have any children come forward with
Mi-
anything like
Mine,
oh,
mine,
yours? Oh.
yeah. He he pointed at something and said, "Look," and I blew him off. And me, out of all people, right? I blew him off. And he was like, and he was young. He was only like 3.5 or something. He was like, no, 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 look, look, look. And daddy, daddy. And I said, no, buddy, like, it's not there. And I turned and I saw what he saw. And I looked back at him and I apologized. And I spoke to him about, I don't know, a few months ago. I said, you know, hey, do you remember that? And initially he said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, I guess he was just too young to remember or whatever. And then he was like, oh, wait, I do remember that. And then he tells me exactly where it was and describes the spot, you know, where it was standing and everything. And like, yeah, the fence is 6 feet tall. And then there's like this pool deck thing or whatever that has another few feet to it. So this thing was like in that gap somewhere, you know, so it's, it I can't tell you exactly what it was. I think it was Sasquatch, but I couldn't tell you exactly what it was. But um, you know,
Was he scared or was he just matter of fact?
no,
Like, hey, look. Mhm.
just yeah, just look, look, look. Like yeah, like he was like kind of relating it to me, I guess. Like you know, like look, look, look. It's you know, because
Mhm.
I don't know. I have Bigfoot stuff around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's
Well, I wonder with all these adults sharing their encounters, had they never been influenced by anything outside, it was something fresh, would it have been so terrorizing? What do you think, Vic? Because I, from what I have researched and what I've heard, there's not a lot of like physical attacks. It's just the sight and the fear behind it. Is there something to be said for that, Vic? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Very rarely do eyewitnesses ever become harmed by the dogmen they encountered. Now, I did just air an episode, actually 2 episodes, that talked about the same encounter that an eyewitness had, where the eyewitness was attacked by a dogman, but I'm pretty sure that that attack happened because the dogman was shot. I always tell eyewitnesses never shoot a dogman unless you are convinced you're going to die anyway, because a lot of times these guys, almost every time when they actually charge you, they're doing that to get a response out of you, not because they plan on following through and attacking you. Well, if you shoot the dogman, then I mean, there's a good possibility they're going to take quite a bit of offense to that and follow through and actually try to harm you. But yeah, I mean, very rarely, like I said, do these guys ever harm an eyewitness. I mean, I've literally spoken with thousands upon thousands of dogman eyewitnesses over the years since 2007. And the grand total of credible eyewitnesses I've spoken with who've ever told me about being harmed intentionally by a dogman is what, 7 or 8.
Oh,
So
wow.
that tells you everything you need to know. This is a fact that a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their minds around, but the numbers, if I've only been exposed to 5 or 10 dogman eyewitnesses, that would be one thing. But when you're talking about a sample size of thousands upon thousands, yeah, now you're at the point where it's safe to come to conclusions and look at the patterns that you've seen and say, okay, yeah, I've definitely been exposed to more than big enough of a sample size to come to some accurate conclusions about how these guys operate. And that's why I say these guys are not programmed to attack you on sight. it's the opposite. These guys are actually, as hard as it might be to wrap your mind around, these guys are actually, they show a tremendous amount of restraint when they encounter us as human beings, a ridiculous amount. In fact, more restraint than pretty much any of the common animals that we know and we interact with every day. To highlight my point, if you spoke with, say, 3,000 or 4,000 people who've had interactions with horses and asked them, okay, how many of you have ever been intentionally harmed by a horse that you've interacted with? Well, you know, the number of people who said yes would be in the hundreds. Well, if you swap out horses for camels or pigs or goats or house cats, or you name the animal, the number of yeses, if you asked, say, 3,000 to 4,000, the number of yeses would be in the hundreds. But if that number for dogmen is only 7 or 8, that right there tells you that as hard as it is to believe, you're actually safer to be in the presence of one of these guys than you would be to be in the presence of a horse or a dog or a house cat or whatever. The numbers clearly show that. So sometimes reality is hard to accept, but reality is reality.
Yeah. Oh, what do you think the purpose of the dogman is? Are they just another creature on the planet? Is there like, you know how I was sharing how I always assumed and thought Bigfoot or Sasquatch were guardians, like land guardians. Is that go the same with dogmen?
Oh, you wanted me to answer. Okay.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. Well, what's the purpose of a mosquito? What's the purpose of a tick? I think sometimes things are just there and they don't necessarily have a purpose. Now, it's been postulated these guys are guardians, but of course we don't know that. It's possible. Maybe they are, but maybe they aren't. So we don't know. All we can do is guess about things like that. And the people who tell you they definitely do know, yeah, well, you know what category to put that in.
Do you have a thought there, Mike, or does that resonate too?
What was the question again?
Well, like their purpose, they're just part of the species.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Sasquatch, I would say, are forest stewards and land guardians for sure. You know, very connected to the, to Mother Nature itself. I can't. When it comes to Dogman, I tell people all the time, I don't know anything about anything. You know, I could tell you they're there. I don't. If I hear somebody saying no, that's a bunch of. I don't want to hear that. But about anything else, I don't have much about them figured out. I could tell you that they're not killing machines. They're smarter than if a grizzly bear is hungry and it sees a human, it's going to kill that human. I think dogmen are smarter than that. They might be hungry, but they will wait out because they know what killing a human brings to the table. And I think, this is just speculation, but I do think that they are smarter than the average bear. Like, I think they know what, messing with humans does. Like, they don't leave a trace. Like, that's why I think, they bluff charge. And it's, like, kind of fun for them to, like, scare the shit, out of us. But, they don't leave a mark, they don't attack. They don't necessarily do anything, like, unless they're super provoked, like Vic was saying, like, don't shoot at one, like, because I mean, you're waging war at that point with something that you don't want to wage war with,
right? And like anybody or humans. I love this. They don't want to eat junk food. That's us.
That's right. Why would they want to eat us when they could have deer or something else that would taste much better? So it only makes sense. Here's something I wanted to put out there. You know what? Well, no, I don't think you guys want to know what the most frightening thing about dogmen would be. I guess you don't want to know, so we can move on.
Oh, no. Tell us.
Go for it.
Oh, you do want to know?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, I figured you would.
When they stand up, right?
Yeah, that too. There are a lot of things about them, and that's included. But in my opinion, one of the most frightening aspects about them, about dogmen, is tied to the fact that one of the biggest things that separates humans from other animals, I know a lot of people don't look at humans as being animals, but we are in the animal kingdom, whether people listening want to accept that or not. But one of the biggest things that separates us from all other creatures is our ability to think in abstract ways. Think about that. If I handed Mike a $20 bill, well, he's going to like that, and understandably so, because to him, that's not just a green piece of paper. He can think about what he can do with that. He can buy lunch. He can buy other things. Well, that's obviously the ability to think in an abstract way. You hand that $20 bill to your dog. Well, he's going to look at it and say, oh, I don't have any interest in that because, well, of course, he can't go to the store and buy anything with a $20 bill anyway. But you get my point. Our ability to think in abstract ways that basically are much more complex than what other animals can think. That's one of the biggest things that separates us from other creatures in the animal kingdom. Well, dogmen, Sasquatch, they can think in abstract ways. Tapping on a window when the curtains are closed or drawn. Tapping on a window, that's thinking in an abstract way. They know that by doing that, that's more than just tapping their claw on glass. They know what doing that is going to accomplish. Is going to mortify that person inside the house who can hear that. And it's done to get a predictable response out of the people or that person in the house who can hear that. When they're outside your house late at night and they know that you know about dogmen and they growl and they know you can hear them growling. Well, they're doing that to get a predicted response out of you. And that too is an abstract way of thinking. So yeah, that's just one of the most frightening things by far about these guys. If you think about that, that really does make them even more terrifying to think about than they are just, thinking about their looks or how fast they are, how strong they are, the size of their claws, their teeth, the implements of destruction they carry around. Right. That ability to think in an abstract way, that's a really frightening characteristic.
Oh, yeah. There's the man of the dog man in there. Oh, wow. I like how you phrased that. I like how you put that. And I know even from listening to your channels, there's a lot of people that have experience of tapping on the window or knocking on the walls or outside the cabins and things. So that does happen. There was I think it's a question here, but it might have been answered already in the chat. And Professor Bauer's talking about chupacabras, the Sasquatch, Dogman, Mothman, psychological hallucinogenic experiences, ? And then I love how Pixie Lore followed up with, well, does psychological experiences leave photos and footprints and videos? So it's not that it answered itself, Bauer. I think that's a great question, but can we loop Dogmen and Bigfoot into the same category as Mothman? And I know they're cryptids, but chupacabras, aren't they just other species? Or do you have anyone call you, Vic, and say, well, I don't have a Dogman experience and I don't have a Bigfoot experience, but I want to tell you about this thing I found. Do you get any calls like that? Do they loop them in together? Mm-hmm.
I do have people reaching out with all sorts of cryptid stories to share, but yeah, I have such a load of Dogman reports coming in, and that's what I decided to focus on. When I got into this back in the 2000s, 2007, 2008, I guess it was, I noticed that if you have a Sasquatch encounter that you're having trouble coming to terms with, you can almost go to your local grocery store and find someone to get help from. But when it came to Dogmen, who do you go to? So yeah, by starting what I did all that time ago, I've got such a workload of encounters coming in, people who need help, that I don't devote time to helping Sasquatch eyewitnesses come to terms with their experience or people who've encountered other cryptids. I have a hard time keeping up with the Dogman eyewitnesses who need help. So yeah, they do come in. I do see them. And if they're traumatized, I feel for them. But
you get some too when you do the paranormal experience show.
Oh,
I do.
Yeah.
I don't help those eyewitnesses in most cases come to terms. I'll talk with them a little bit, but I definitely can't devote the time to them that I would to a Dogman eyewitness to help them come to terms with their experiences.
Right.
But yeah, they definitely do come in.
Okay. To Mothman, don't categorize me. I want to thank you all again in the chat. If anyone has a question again, just please feel free to throw it up there. And Mr. Mothman, pro tip: carry dog treats everywhere you go. No joke. Does that help? Should we feed the dogmen? Should we leave? But I think you already said it, Vic. About wouldn't they rather have what's natural in the woods?
They don't
Or
seem to like that when you try to feed them.
okay.
They
Like
don't
try to
like that.
domesticate or something. Okay.
I think it's a matter of it's like an insult. Do you think I
Okay.
need you to feed me? I think that's for the most part, that's the take that most eyewitnesses get when they try to feed a dog man. The response isn't nearly as positive as with the Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm. Have back to the children a little bit. I know, Mike, you said your son had an experience, but Vic, I don't think I finished asking you if you've had children share their experiences with you, or adults like myself that shared a childhood experience. Do you get a lot of those calls?
Not
Or
a lot of them, but they do come in, and yeah,
oh,
you do
yeah.
speak with children, and it's always bad when the kid has an encounter, but the parent doesn't. I mean, Mike just
Mm,
laid it out. He didn't believe his child, until he saw the Sasquatch there. So,
mhm,
and that's normal. That's
mm,
normal. We've been programmed ever since we've learned how to
Mhm.
speak to believe that the world is a certain way. And the older you get, the more that idea is just reinforced in your mind that, okay, I know how the world is. So if
mhm,
what I'm being told falls outside of that realm of what I think is the way the world works, then it must be bunk. So that's why when children have encounters with these cryptids and their parents never see them, never see the cryptid, that's why it's so wrenching, because you've got this child who needs help desperately, but in most cases, the parent just dismisses it as imagination or whatever, or a lie. But yeah, you do have times where, like Mike experienced, the parent does see the cryptid and they're reaching out for help for, well, in some cases for themselves and their children, but that's definitely the ideal situation. If the child has to have an encounter, a situation where the parent has seen that cryptid as well, the dogman as well, because then the parent's on board, they understand why the child is traumatized. I mean, it's bad enough being an adult of years. The difficulty in dealing effectively with a dogman encounter, it's got everything to do with being able to cope and compensate for your whole line of thinking being turned on its end, turned upside down and on its end. Well, one thing that really plays a huge part in that, in your ability to do that, would be the experiences that have accrued over the span of your life. But with a child, I mean, they don't have a lot of experiences to draw upon. So it just makes
mhm,
it that much more difficult for them to come to terms with such an experience as a dogman encounter, just like it's harder for them to come to terms with other traumatic experiences compared to an adult. So, yeah, that's
yeah.
why if they have to have an encounter, it's just so much better if the parent is on board and if they were there when it happened, is basically what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I feel ya. I'm right there with you. I want to welcome Joy. I see you there, Joy. Joy has a question. What's the difference between those and a shapeshifter? How can you tell the difference? If either one of you want to take that and run, or Vic,
You want to get that,
you
Mike?
want to?
I don't necessarily have a good answer unless you see the shape shifting in action. Um, and most of the shapeshifters are in strictly like wolf form. You know, like they're taking on a wolf, not a dog man. So that's pretty much probably how, I would say the only way you would be able to decipher the difference, at least that I could think of off the top of my head.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Of the being able actually to see it shift. Yeah. Um, well, there you go. And I wanted to throw that in because I didn't want you to get lost there, Joy. But I'm circling back just one more time, because I'm going to throw in a little of my 2 cents here, working with homeschool children. And it's kind of, I'm watching this phenomenon come around with the homeschool community. And Vic, I think I shared this with you, that I know of a group that teaches children online about cryptids. And I thought it was fascinating because these children, they're not taking a fear approach. They're talking about the geography of where they've been spotted, what they've been speculated to look like, and the dimensions, and their demeanor, and what they eat, what they eat. All speculation, but they're helping children figure out this particular type of species. Do you think that's a good idea, or do you think that's an idea left for the experiencers themselves? Like, should we be teaching children about this species? What are your thoughts with kids on that? Because I'm starting to get surrounded. I see there's an intrigue, and I mean, perhaps this could be our next level, next generations of researchers. I don't know, but children are interested, and they're not interested in the boogeyman side of it and the fear side of it. They're just interested in, what the heck is that? What does it look like? What does it like to eat? Where does it live? Like just any other animal out there. Is that a good idea?
Well, that really is a dicey subject there. I mean, in some ways, it can be a good thing because, in a way, it prepares them if they have an encounter down the road. On the other hand, one of the things about kids that we all know about is they all think they're bulletproof. They think they can't die. They do a lot of things that they never would do if they were adults, because as an adult, you understand that you are vulnerable to so many things. And with that in mind, that's why it probably isn't all that good of an idea to really put that out there for children below a certain age. So, wow. On one hand, it would kind of prepare them. On the other, it could put them in a situation where they're definitely not prepared for. So I'm not really sure how to say that. I'd have to lean towards the no side of things.
Yeah. No, I respect that, and I resonate with that. I also see you, Primal Cry. It isn't any different than teaching children about races and cultures. I definitely see that, but I understand where Vic's coming from. If they have this familiarity with it and this knowledge, perhaps they have a run-in, and then they tell their friends, "Oh, don't worry, I got this. I know who they are." They just
or they actually know about an area that's close by, Heidi, where a dogman was seen, and maybe unfortunately, if they have the means to get to that area with their buddies, then maybe the dogman's still in that area. There's a researcher, a really accomplished Sasquatch researcher, Kane, I forgot his last name, but he is based in Ohio. And on one of the podcasts he was on, he talked about this area in Ohio that he and his research partner found out about, where this dogman was purported to live. Well, some kid had gone into the area where I guess the dogman had like a den or something like that, and the kid went missing. So the locals in this area, they knew about it, but they tried to keep it hidden, keep that fact that the kid was possibly dispatched by the dogman hidden. Well, I mean, you could be looking at situations like that. That's a perfect example why I think it wouldn't be a good idea in a lot of ways to let kids know about these guys being real, being out there.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely resonates. That makes sense. There is another question. Hi, Neil. Neil from across the pond, Mr. Castle Dude. He says, can dogmen teleport like Bigfoot? Because I think we've all kind of expressed that we've seen Bigfoot kind of jump in and out of a dimension. Some of us have. What are your thoughts there, Vic? Have you heard any encounters of dogmen like just disappearing like that, or running off, like physical? Are they in the physical?
Well, I have heard several credible eyewitnesses talk about seeing a portal and a dogman disappearing into a portal, or stepping out of a portal into this reality. So I've heard credible eyewitnesses say that, but it's definitely not a common thing.
Okay, there you go. And Mike, with your experience, you've ran into some portals and things in the woods. Are they usually around when you see Sasquatch or encounter the energy of a Sasquatch? Or a Bigfoot?
Yeah, more so than the dogman thing. The dogman, I don't necessarily think are something out of the ether. I think they're kind of more here all the time. But again, I don't know. I really don't know one way or another. Because then you look back through history and you look at Anubis, and they viewed him as a god, right? Because he was, God knows what he was doing, but I mean, they literally labeled him as a god because of how much ability he had. So, again, that's why I don't really touch on the Dogman too much, is because I really don't know much about much. But yeah, with the Sasquatch, absolutely, the interdimensional and all that. I'm fully there, but again, I don't put everything in a box and say that I know everything about every one of them, because I'm only in this small nook and cranny of the world, so I can't talk about everything because I don't know it all. So
I got you. Yeah, yeah. Well, I do
yeah.
appreciate both of your experiences. And thank you, Dogman Encounters. Vic, I see there in the chat. Thank you for that. And welcome, Brown Dwarf and Sandy and everybody. As we wind down a little bit here, if any of you have any more of those questions, I would love to hear it. But I want to hear from you, Mike and Vic. What do you think's next for the Dogman Bigfoot communities? Is it growing, or has it kind of hit a plateau and it's just kind of maintaining speed? Or do you think is it growing, and is there a next level to this? Or it's just more research, more experience? As the veil thins, or you think this is going to be happening more and more, people having experience?
It definitely seems to be growing. It seems like Dogman is catching up to the whole Sasquatch phenomenon, but I don't think it's ever going to catch it, but it definitely seems to be growing by leaps and bounds. Fear sells, like we talked about earlier. It definitely sells, and what better to sell fear than Dogmen? So it's only natural that this whole Dogman thing would just grow and grow. But how big is it going to get? I don't know. All I can do is just guess. I think it kind of runs in cycles where it
Yes.
experiences rapid growth, and then it kind of slows down, and then it accelerates again. But
Yeah.
where this all
Yeah.
goes, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows where this will go? How about those communities? Will they grow? Will they get over themselves? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, right now with AI, you have a lot of new authors coming out of the woodwork, and because books write themselves, but like Vic said, things go through cycles, and I think that's one of them right now. Is like storytelling has become easy, right? Like everyone can just literally create a story, so we have to really weed out who's who and what's what. And I respect the way Vic approaches it. I do, because he said he'd rather take on somebody and then rather than weed them out for some reason, like but yeah, I think it goes through cycles as far as like where the interests lie, right? Like where are people's interests? And from at least in my channel, I can tell you right now, people don't care about like boots on the ground stuff. Like it's at a major drop off. I think people are more interested in like the hearing of the stories themselves, and they want to get to the attention span is not really there. They want to get to the meat. They don't want the potatoes and the vegetable and all that. You know what I mean? So like either get to it, and but then again, the way I look at it is, if I just give you that small piece, that leaves too many questions wide open for what happened, and is that BS, and how and how, like, so I'll I always stick to my way of like showing the whole way through, so that way if we do bump into something, you see how we got there and how it happened and whatever. That's just my method. It's not, it's not for everybody, but
Yeah. I'm hearing that. I think to throw in a little bit of a high vibe there, I just was on the show last night and just talking about just consciousness and just universal and animal kingdom and humans and whatever. Just it was a conscious conversation. And it did make me think about cryptids, and it made me think about our episode today, because there's been some experiencers that I've listened to that say there's been a form of communication from the inside. There's no words spoken, but it's a conscious connection.
yeah.
Have you heard of those? Have you heard of that, Mike? Have you heard of people
I've,
having that experience? Have you ever had that experience?
yeah, I've had it personally, so that's why, like, I always say, like, I'm just an average Joe. Like, I'm just a regular ass guy that all of a sudden had this telepathy occur, and people call it mind speak. I've had that happen. Downloads where all of a sudden I just know things. Like, there's been too many occasions where things like that have happened, and for the most part, it's on their terms. Like, I've learned to just put myself at a certain vibration, certain frequency, and that they can reach me. And the best way I can explain that is, we can know each other perfectly well. We can walk into the same building together with walkie talkies and say, okay, don't go further than 20 feet from me. But if we're not on the same channel, right, we can't hear each other, right? But as soon as you're dialed in, it's like you have a perfect frequency, a perfect connection. You could hear each other loud and clear. So instead of me trying to find them, I leave it open. I try to just connect to nature itself. I try to tap into everything around me, and them included, and just hope for the best.
Yeah.
And if they're in the mood for it, great, and seems like it works. So
Yeah. Oh, wow. Vic, have you had call-ins? Have you had experiencers say that was like a spiritual awakening for me, or this was a spiritual connection?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah,
all the time.
All the time.
I've had people report spiritual type qualities to their encounters, but I don't think any of them have told me that they saw it as being a spiritual awakening or anything like that. But there have been plenty of credible eyewitnesses who have reported qualities to their encounters that definitely are spiritual in nature. So it really does make you wonder where the line is when it comes to these guys. Are they truly spiritual, or are they just flesh and blood creatures out there trying to scratch out a living, or a combination of both?
Or is it all the same thing, or are we seeing multiple things? Is Mike, you know what I mean? That's where I get confused too sometimes. Is are we seeing the same thing every time? You know what I mean? What if there's multiple things out there, right? Like, But yeah, I totally agree, Vic.
Yeah. Well, that's why I love these conversations. I think we also can slow down on some of the infight if we just understand we're all coming with our theories, our perspective, our experience, and we're holding space to listen to one another's. And I think you both do that very well. And Vic, I can't imagine having the platforms you have, the multiple platforms, and then getting just thousands of calls. You must have the patience of a saint. And by your voice, I think you do.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it does require a lot of patience sometimes.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and it's over 10 years now, correct? I mean, you started with the one platform and then you grew. Are you going to add any more to your mix?
No, I can't handle it. No, I'm kind of I've backed off on the whole my paranormal experience podcast.
Okay.
It's just really overwhelming, and trying to keep all four afloat. There was a person who was supposed to handle basically my paranormal experience after I started it, who unfortunately that didn't turn out being the case. So now I was saddled with a fourth podcast to produce, and I mean, I have a hard enough time keeping up with the Dogman eyewitnesses. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what direction that's going to go for that show, but yeah, it's never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment.
He's being humble. He did just advance recently. How you just started doing live streams? What, like 2-3 months ago, Vic?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So I mean that was, I think that was a big deal. Like, because so many people have questions for the people, and I always see your comment thread, and it's like questions for the person who was on. So you bring them back on live is awesome. It's awesome. It gives everyone a chance to ask them those questions personally. So I think it's a really amazing thing that you dedicated even more time to that. So.
Oh, I love that. What is this, Neil? Castle Dude, Castle Dude's asking you about talking about the TV appearance on a paranormal show. Did I miss that? When was that? Did you do something like that?
Oh yeah. I've been approached by a few shows, but the only one I did was Paranormal. I'm saying Vic show. My Paranormal Caught on Camera. That's what it's called. So
Oh,
what they do is they take existing footage and like just use it, and they use this old footage, and people still love it. I mean, it was one of my first encounters. It was the first one I got on film, I think, and I believe it was a female. But anyway, yeah, they named the episode like Long Island Bigfoot and More. I think it's season 6, episode 1. So I had sat down with them like in the beginning of season 5, and I'm like, I waited about a year, and I'm like, where is it? And finally, I just gave up looking. I'm like, I guess they're just not going to do it. But I guess they were waiting to open season 6 with it. So it was pretty
okay.
cool. Yeah, it was pretty cool and exciting. Like more so for like my mom and my son. Like they had it on the DVR, and they were like, "Come here, look." I'm like, "You're on?" I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, I know. Yeah, it's great.
Oh,
I
I
don't like hearing my own voice, and like, you know what I mean. I don't. I don't want to watch this. Like, but
yeah.
it was cool that the people they had on there, like the we'll air quote experts, right? Like they were pretty gentle, so that was nice. They didn't make only like one person made kind of like a mockery of it, like. And so
Mhm.
that was nice. As long as people don't like make fun of the topic itself and it brings awareness, and you'd be surprised. Ever since then, that show airs like probably every Sunday here. Like
Oh
in
wow.
my
Okay.
area, it like every
Mhm.
Sunday they air it. Like they'll air a bunch of them before the new one comes on, and people watch it. And then all of a sudden, my Facebook just like my Facebook page just starts blowing up, and like and it's usually what brings people local experiences. Since I went on that show, local people have been telling me all these things that they've been holding in. From I'm talking from mermaids to
Oh wow.
the thing that just came in, 3 minutes before we came on the air about that 30-second owl. That hunter out here said he was scared to get out of his deer stand. He wanted to sleep in it, but I won't talk about it too much because I don't have his permission yet. But
Gotcha. Oh,
yeah,
that's exciting. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I love it when we all get the community lifts one another and like, wow, look at you, and oh, that's neat, or hey, listen to me. Like that's the community build. That's like here. So thank you, community chat. um, I have a couple links here. So of course, I mean, I have a feeling I think everybody in the chat knows who you guys are, but let's say for the replay crew, dogmenencounters.com. That's Mr. Vic, and also Bigfoot Eyewitness. That's the radio show I think I was on, right?
hmm
That was so exciting, and that was trippy, like you're saying, Mike. My voice. It was you just hear the voice tell the story,
oh,
and I
it's
think,
hard.
oh,
Yeah,
poor Vic. I think the whole time I was like, like breathing.
Come on now, both of you guys have great voices.
no,
It was so crazy.
it's hard. That one's hard. I think that's the one where you right, Vic, where you talk the whole time. It's not like a give and take, right?
Yeah, you're
My
just talking,
Bigfoot
and then he
sighting.
comes in the end. Yeah, my
Yeah,
Bigfoot. Yeah, you come in at
yeah.
the end.
Yeah, that was a tough one. I think I stopped in the middle somewhere, and I was just like, Nick, what? Hang on, I'm lost.
That was funny. You did so well, though. Both of you did so well.
It was really fun, and like I said, it's just I really appreciate your calmness, Vic. Like you have a
Yes.
presence.
Yep.
You are the ultimate host of letting people, because you're talking to just anyone, people who might not even have a social media account. They're calling you like from the sticks, from the city, from everywhere,
Oh,
all types of people.
yeah. He
Yeah, and you
works.
can
He
get them
works with
all.
you. Yeah, works
Mhm.
with you on time. This is. Yeah, he's like he puts himself out. Like
Yes.
he does this full time for real. It's not like
Yeah.
it's yeah, like
Yeah.
it's no joke.
It's not a side hustle. This is the
You know,
hustle. So,
it's
yeah, do you have any closing words, Vic, or anything you really want to share with anybody that, that we didn't cover, or, something that's pressing on your mind, perhaps?
I do. Yeah, I'm
Uh-huh.
sure there are people out there listening to the show, some of your fans who have had dogman encounters of their own, who haven't
Mhm.
come forward to seek out help. And if that's the case, what I would say to them would be, ever since you've learned how to speak and consequently process things that happen to you in life, you're basically taught how to deal with whatever it is that comes across your plate in almost any instance, except for a dogman encounter or a Sasquatch encounter. Well, one of the reasons why they can be so hard to deal with and come to terms with is because you're just totally caught off guard without any preparation to be able to prepare for it, to know how to deal with it. If you're traumatized by an experience to the point where, a Sasquatch or especially a dogman encounter can knock you off of your base, your comfort spot, it's only natural that you're not going to be able to deal with it in a way that you would be able to deal with another experience that life has prepared you for. So it's only understandable that it's going to give you so much trouble. But please don't let pride get in the way of you reaching out for someone to help you. And it doesn't have to be me. What I'm getting at here is, please don't just sit there and suffer in silence. I mean, there are people out there who will help you. And if you've had an encounter with a Sasquatch or a dogman, I mean, it is in your best interest to not suffer in silence, to reach out to get help so you can get back to good and function the way that you were functioning before you had that experience.
Mm. I really love that. So I absolutely love that. And I have to agree, especially working with children, just letting them get that experience out and in a safe space be heard, it can really shift someone's whole being. It can change their frequency and really better their livelihood. So thanks for being that person, or at least just, reminding people that they can, whoever they need to share with, just to get that experience out. So yeah, thank you for that. Mr. Dogman encounters himself. How about you, Mike? Any last minute words of wisdom?
no,
You wanna
not
share?
really. I mean, thank you all for being here. I saw Elena, my number one supporter, in the
Ah,
chat. Yeah, thank you all. I just, I enjoy being here, chopping it up. So thank you for having
yeah.
me. Vic,
Oh my
always good to
goodness.
see you.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm
always
so grateful. Mhm. Oh yeah, good for you, because both you guys have worked together too. They've been on each other. So yes, I think, there are some new faces I'm seeing scroll by. So I'm really happy to see that. So folks, please take a peek at their pages. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, maybe if you're here too. And again, I'm really thankful to both you fellas, because you are busy and you're big, and you're taking the time to help me grow this. And yeah, thank you for riding this wave of interviewing with me.
No big deal.
Yeah,
thanks for having us on.
absolutely. Thank you to the chat. Thanks, folks. I see you saying your byes. Please tune in again. I'll be sharing my adverts of the next episode coming up, and we are almost back to school, so we're going to be doing a synaptic circle of that fun stuff. But for now, please and thank you for enjoying the show, and we'll talk to y'all soon. And fellas, thank you for all that you are and do. I'm grateful to you.
Thanks for
Well,
having us.
absolutely. Oh, that voice, Vic. I tell ya. Okay. Bye, everybody.